welcome to another episode of the Lipstick League. I'm Natalie Eganoff.
And I am Nicole Mahalik, and it's where sports and pop culture come to play. And we have another guest.
Yay! Our second guest podcast. Bex was in Philadelphia for how many years were you here, Bex?
I want to say like 5 total by the time I left. Yeah, 5 or 6 years.
And how many format flips did the station have?
Well, it wasn't only format, it was company flips.
Right.
We had a number of them.
So obviously we have a lot of listeners from Philly, and you were on 96.5, but then you also did some stuff on WIP, which is the other sports station. So that is what, not only are we friends, but you're now in Boston. And when we came up with this whole topic of, is other cities is hard on players as Philly, and we talk and we're like, wait, Bex grew up and worked in radio in New York, and then she worked in Philly and in sports in Philly, and now she's in Boston. Talk about a badass female representative to come on the Lipstick League.
Of all those different cities. It's funny because they are so different and so much alike.
Yeah.
And they hate each other, but I'm like, you guys are all the same, which is crazy.
That's how it always is. Whether it's cities or people, it's you always find when people are really passionate and they have so many opinions, and they it's oh, we hate each other, but it's but you're all kind of the same.
Yeah.
You have the same baseline for the way that you are, so it makes sense that those 3 cities, especially the biggest sports cities in the country.
Yeah.
What's bigger than New York, Philadelphia, and Boston for sports? That's it. So you have
Chicago a little bit maybe, but
that's probably 4th.
Yeah.
Fourth, yeah. You've experienced the trifecta of the pinnacle of sports fandom in the United States of America.
And what's really cool is that I was in Philly when they won the Super Bowl, and then the next year I moved to Boston. So I was at the Patriots Super Bowl parade. I was at the Eagles parade. Then I was at the Patriots parade. And then I came here through Robert Kraft and his little spa service debacle, Tom Brady's controversy of is he staying, is he leaving, the dynasty falling apart with Tom Brady versus Belichick. So I feel very privileged to have gotten to Boston when all of that was unfolding, because for a very long period of time, Boston sports was just title town. They were just, they're just accustomed to winning. So it was actually cool to come here and move here when there was a lot of controversy happening. And
what was that like during the, I guess the unraveling of the dynasty and the downfall, if you will, of Tom Brady from the Patriots, and when that relationship dissipated? Do you feel like it was that's all that everybody talked about there? It had to be, right?
Yeah. I mean, this city, just like Philly, bleeds their sports. Most people are in either Sox gears or Celtics or Patriots. And you go game day, you go into the city and it's packed. Everybody's going into the TD Garden here with it's their Wells Fargo. So this city loves their sports. And it's awesome to be a part of it. But watching it unfold, being an outsider, was absolutely fascinating, because I work with an entire team. They weren't born in Boston, but they've spent the last 20 years of their lives in Boston.
Right. Wait, let's back up for a second. Just give a little recap for people who don't know your background.
Okay.
Talk about where you grew up, how you got started in radio, your time in Philly, and how you ended up in Boston. And then that will be a way for us to kind of weave through all this.
Tell me about what it was like in Boston when Tom.
Yeah. Plus it's a good tease.
To the dirt. So I grew up in New Jersey. It's funny because I grew up in New Brunswick, which is literally center of the state.
Yeah.
So half of the people I grew up with were Giants, Yankees, Mets fans. Everybody else was, your Eagles, your all Philly sports. So I actually didn't I grew up first generation. I'm Lebanese. So my mom and dad came from Lebanon, when they were whatever, 20 years old. My dad, like, he's like, football, what's that? Like, I didn't grow up in a household that loved sports. So I ended up falling in love with Aaron Rodgers, and I'm like, I'm going to be a Packers fan. So
Not a bad choice.
Yeah, not a bad choice.
so like I grew up a Packers fan, not really knowing what that meant,
Right.
and then a Yankees fan, just because that's what everybody was wearing around me.
Wait, so was Lebanon? What sport is big in Lebanon? Is it soccer? It just wasn't a thing.
It would technically be like, I guess basketball. They're not a very sports oriented country, but they were big in basketball. I mean, soccer anywhere outside of the United States is major, but it just wasn't something that was like, we didn't watch football on Sundays,
right?
And actually, it's so weird saying my fiance now, but Jimmy,
your fiance,
like I still want to say my boyfriend, but it was amazing watching the Eagles Super Bowl with him, because it was him, his brother, his dad, and his grandpa, and I missed out on that side of it, you know?
Yeah.
So, but that was really cool. So I grew up in Jersey. I went to school in Jersey City. That's where I went to college. Post college,
what's the college in Jersey City?
It's St. Peter's. It was Jesuit. I interned all over the place. Knew I wanted to do radio, so I interned in New York radio at that point. Like randomly sent a fake air check to Philly. Shout out to Buster at Q over there. And he brought me on. Like, I was doing overnights and weekend shifts for like a year and a half, finishing at like 4 a.m., driving all the way back to North Jersey, where I was living at that point. And
God, the three of us are such hustlers. I mean, we
gotta do
like, let's just like tap ourselves on the back. I mean, the amount of miles like that we probably put like on our Fords and our Civics, you know, like overnight.
Like, I didn't even have to pay for gas, but I was like, I gotta do this. Like, I have to do it at that point. So I was at Wired 96.5 doing weekends, overnights. Miraculously, you know, I ended up moving into a morning role position, which is really cool. And then, it just sort of evolved from there. In Philly, I had such a great time in Philly. I didn't realize how much I loved it and how much I'd miss it until I left it. But I was at 96.5. I got to do stuff with WIP and also CBS. I did an entertainment report with them, and then KYW. And then this position opened up in Boston, and I couldn't say no to it. So I came, and now I work at, it's a top 40 station. It's called Kiss 108, and I co-host and executive produce our morning show. So it's a morning show it's a heritage show. It's been on the air for 40 years. It's really cool. They're amazing. And I've been in all these great cities with major sports fans and major sports narratives all the time. Like, there's not a day that we don't talk about sports at work.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of being in a city like that, is even though you're doing top 40 radio, at a heritage station, it's still like, that's everyday content. Like, that's, and that's something that you don't have to come up with, because the storylines write themselves. It's not you doing it. It's just kind of like, it's like, let's check in and see what's going on with the teams, you know?
And let me tell you, the Patriots write constant stories. Like, there is always something coming out of, whether it's Belichick or Kraft or Tom. Like, we still report on Tom Brady, even though he's not a Patriot anymore. But like, it's constantly like, what's Tom doing? Where's Tom today? What kind of house did he buy? Where's Giselle? What's Giselle doing? Oh, the kids are in their Instagrams. So like, they just write themselves. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting too, because so we write stories on our blog on the radio station, and obviously I'm in country. And one of the top stories in all of 2020, it was like the fourth top story that I wrote on my blog, was Jason Kelce announces retirement. Yeah. But remember when like he did that fake Instagram where he's like, I'm not retired, I'm retiring for, and like, what was it? He was like,
he was retiring from, or was that when he announced that he was having a baby?
What did he say? He was, remember that?
Retiring from diapers. I feel like it had to do with his child.
Yeah, it was like, and then this week it was the two stories of Zach Ertz crying, and then the picture of Zach, then the video of Zach Ertz, Jason Kelce, and Carson Wentz alone on the link. Yeah. And like both of those stories had like 12,000 It's like I'm in country and those were the big stories on XTU. You know what I mean? Like
when you live in a city that loves their sports, people want to know what's happening with their players.
Yeah. So obviously the Eagles are like the team in Philly. And Natalie, I think, would you say that it's Eagles, Sixers, Phillies, Flyers?
At this point, yeah, which I think is amazing that the Sixers have kind of, rose through the ranks over the last 5 years at the very minimum, to be
Right.
that dominant team.
Yep.
City, the way that they kind of just transitioned the team, their in-game presentation, like their in-game presentation, I feel is like the best live experience you can have for one of the teams in the city. But the reason that it's so good is because they sucked for so long. So
Yeah.
they're like, if people can't come watch a good basketball team, we're gonna have somebody on a unicycle balancing bowls on their head, and then we're gonna have the dunk squad, and then we're gonna have the mascot who also can do like amazing acrobatics, and then we're gonna have the dancers. So like,
and shout out to Christian Crosby. We can't forget
Christian Crosby, who is, he's our in-arena host. He's amazing.
Live life nice, girls.
Right. Yeah, like they, the Sixers got it. So it's great to see like them. And I mean, now, depending on what happens with the Eagles and the shit show that has become their front office, the team, all the like the terrible decisions they've made, like the Sixers really have a chance if they keep winning to like, I think that they could be the number one team in this town, because prior to the Sixers, coming up, it was Eagles and Phillies. Think like about back 2008, 2009, Eagles, Phillies, they were always competing for headlines. I remember Donovan McNabb announced his that he was like leaving, and then the Phillies came out and they announced that they were doing something. I can't remember what it is like right now, but they were always competing. So now like the Phillies are the last because they've sucked. They haven't made the playoffs in almost a decade. And then it's like the Flyers are pretty hot right now, but hockey's such a like a niche sport, but not in Boston. Like
the Bruins, they love the Bruins out here too. Yeah.
The Bruins are great there, and then it's awesome. So how do they rank in Boston, do you think?
Nothing is the Patriots. I mean, the Patriots. I would say Patriots. The Sox suck too, so I would probably go Patriots, Celtics, Bruin. I don't know though. The Bruins are like a heavy contender too.
But like, what if you're walking around? Like, I guess I kind of look at it like when you're walking around Philly, like you see Eagles gear, and I'm not talking even in season. I'm talking like on average all year round. You're always going to see people in Eagles gear, and then like you're going to kind of see some Sixers, kind of see some Phillies, and then like a little bit Flyers. So I guess that's like when I think of that, like even when the Eagles suck, I still feel like they're the number one team.
Yeah.
That like,
I would agree that that's how it is here. I mean, the Patriots, like they are going through the most transition that they've ever gone through right now between, Tom Brady leaving, Edelman didn't have a season with them, Cam coming in, but people are still loyal to their team. And what's fascinating is, and this is what I was saying before about like being an outsider in a studio with people that were born and or spent the last 20 years here. They look at somebody like Tom Brady and they hate him. And I'm like, he brought you so much. Like he did so much for this city for so long. But it was, I think the way, first off, I think it's too soon, right? Like when you break up with somebody, like you need some time to heal.
Right.
And that's kind of where they are. But yeah, it's almost a little bit of anger and bitterness towards Tom Brady, where I'm like, from the outside, I'm like, do you know how long people waited for a Super Bowl? Whereas here they've almost become a little bit more accustomed to it, that it's a little bit more of a bitterness feeling.
Well, that's a very Philadelphia mentality though, right? Like I feel like if somebody left us like that, I mean, even the way that Donovan McNabb, who statistically is the greatest Eagles quarterback of all time, like you can't deny his stats,
right?
People are still so mad at him. I mean, myself included. He never delivered us the Super Bowl, but on paper, he's the greatest Eagles quarterback of all time, and like the fan base is just totally out on him. I feel so. That's also interesting that they have like this like visceral like bitterness and like this emotional attachment.
And lot of it had to do with how he left, because there was a lot of back and forth. It was like almost this dangling. Like he got an endorsement deal with, I forget who, I think it was like a watch company, and during the Super Bowl like posted this ad, and people couldn't tell if he was walking into the stadium or walking out.
Yes.
So
Oh, that was, yeah.
So it's almost like he like drug us along, and you're being like, you're like, is he leaving? Is he staying? Then Edelman, like one day was like, he's not leaving, he's not going. So it was a lot of that anger exists. And I mean, I think just across sports in general, you get so attached to these players. And imagine he was here for 20 years.
Yeah.
So,
I have like so many thoughts on Tom Brady, but I can't imagine him being my quarterback, winning all those titles, and then leaving. Like, I'm upset now for Boston fans.
yeah.
Like I can feel how that must feel for them.
And you know what was one of the biggest things that, as I said before, I was at back-to-back Super Bowls, Super Bowl parades, and it was so amazing having had that experience, because like being at the Eagles one, like people were bringing ashes of their deceased, husband.
Yeah.
And it was
literally,
and it was almost like a Wednesday sips for the Patriots here, because it was just sort of like they were used to these parades. Like,
right.
A parade down through the city isn't something that like was this unbelievable thing. That year too, it was the year that I got here, the Patriots won the Super Bowl, and then the Red Sox, now controversy because they cheated, but they won
the World Series.
The World Series.
So you got a double whammy. That's
prime time. And then the Bruins, I think they came like really close. I think they lost in like game 7 or something.
They did. They almost won the Stanley Cup, right?
Yeah. I was like, I'm like totally good luck charm here. Going from
ever leave. Like you have to stay here forever.
Yeah. The thing that's interesting about the Tom Brady thing for me is that like I feel like, I'm sure there are people, but I feel like it was well twofold. I feel like sometimes with a relationship, like it's over. Like it's played out, and we have we're so grateful for our beautiful children, you know what I mean? Or in this case, trophies. But like it's time to like try something new, right? And then on the flip side, I feel like they just got so used to the winning that that's why they got mad. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think maybe what'd you say, Nat?
I said, welcome to the dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that like I could see people being like, okay, like it was time for him to go.
I see both sides of it. And I think a narrative that we didn't get insight on, but was like real, was the concept of like this Belichick versus Tom Brady. You know, like whose team is it? And I think that there was some like really serious contention between them. And again, totally my speculation. I don't really know anything, but I think that there were like some really serious issues between them. And Tom Brady like took pay cuts to play, and I don't think he wanted to end his career somewhere else. But I think he, like you said, you get to a point where the relationship's just over, and like the longer you stay.
Well, and that's why I like busted open and I was like, tell me about Tom Brady, because I remember following it here in Philly, and it was just like a steady decline, right? Like he stopped going to OTAs.
Yeah.
And then it came out that he did that as a compromise with Giselle, because Giselle was like, you're not stepping up to the plate at home, which I find
fascinating.
And because she's like, okay, like I'm a supermodel, I make more money than you. I know that you're Tom Brady and you've won all these championships, but like you're not stepping up to the plate at home. So like I'm gonna need you to like curb your football. He didn't go to OTAs, which like a lot of veteran players don't, which is fine. But like, that was kind of like the first sign that like he was like starting to pull back from like some of his responsibilities, I guess, if you will. And then I remember the report that came out that said like the final meeting, like one of the final meetings with Tom and Bill, Giselle was there, and apparently, like again, I'm pulling this from like the back of my like brain, that Giselle like ripped Bill Belichick like a new asshole, and like had all these demands, and I'm just like, he brought his wife.
Yeah, to the meeting. You know, she was like under the table kicking him.
Yeah.
Fucking say it. Oh, can I curse on this? Can I?
Yeah, you can curse.
Okay.
Yeah. And with her accent, I can remember her being like, "You're not good to Tom." Like, my husband can't catch the ball, throw the ball, catch the ball at the same time. Like, you're not good to Tom. Like, we're not gonna stay. And like, so I can see like that whole thing. I remember just being like my eyes like wide open, like to like see how it go down. And the fact that she was involved, I was like, this is great. So that's what I'm also curious. Now that they're mad at Tom, are they like out on Giselle too?
It's funny. So this is my perspective from the people I work with.
Oh yeah.
Giselle never really wanted to be here. So
yes.
I think
yes.
that like she spent 20 years in Boston, and like she didn't really affiliate herself with any like charitable. Tom did a lot for the city, but like she was kind of in and out, which a lot of players and a lot of players' wives and families do that. Like we see them, a lot of them are displaced. They get apartments in the city for the length of the season, and it's over. But for as long as they lived here, I think that she never really took a liking to the city, and she was ready to be out. So I don't think people ever attached themselves to her as they did attach themselves to Tom. I think she was just sort of there.
Yeah, I kind of find that fascinating. I think the thing for me that like I knew he was going is like even before his last season in Boston, they put the house on the market. Do you remember that? Yeah. And I was like, guys, this is obvious he's gone. Yeah. Like, and people were like, oh, well, I'm like, you don't put your house on the market unless like you're leaving. But I always thought that with Giselle, that like you never ever heard her being involved in Boston at all.
Like when you're somewhere for 20 years, that's a long length of time. Like, I mean, that's like the majority, like that's a lifetime.
Yeah.
Like, not a lifetime, but but yeah, she never really ingrained herself into the city from what, again, I've been here 2.5 years, but from what I've been made aware of. And another thing, like you said, with the house on the market, Tom on the front of like things he was doing locally, he started in that last year, like reports are coming out, like he did a lot with I think it's big something buddies.
Best buddies. Yeah.
Great.
Which is
and he was a huge representative and a brand ambassador. He pulled himself off of that in Boston and decided to go and do like the national side of it. So like all these little things from a more local and a more Boston-based standpoint, he started doing those things too, where they were all signs that he was going to be leaving soon.
Yeah, it's kind of like how when Nick Foles, like they were speculating like whether or not he was going to stay. And then they're like, he's a Christian man. He'll be a backup, like, and hold the clipboard. Care about money. And, on the Mike Missinelli show, we were like, all right, he's still a human. Like, it's a bigger paycheck somewhere else to go start. He's going to leave Philly. Like, sorry, Philadelphia. Like, I'm sure it was like the same with Tom. They're like, he'll never leave us. He loves us so much.
Exactly. And I think that we forget that as sports fans, that, like, I think they grow to love the cities that they live in, but they're still working. You know what I mean? Like they're still going to make decisions based on their families, based on contracts, based on money. And as a fan, you're just like, no, like Nick Foles is ours and he's not going anywhere. Like, like you attach yourself to them in a more emotional way than they would, to us.
So I guess the question that I have coming from somebody who like saw New York and saw Philly, do you feel like the media, the fans are harder on the players? Now, Boston, like we already talked about, is like a championship city. So the city's used to winning. Whereas like Philly, my theory and how all this came up was I feel the reason that Philly has not had a superstar since Allen Iverson is because the city in general is way too hard on people and they can't take it, especially in the world of social media. People hate Donovan McNabb. And that was even before, like, I don't even know if MySpace was a thing in 2005. Like, there wasn't like internet trolls on MySpace. You know what I mean? So like, and Donovan McNabb is still like an alcoholic because of the hell he went through in Philly. And that was like before social media. And so like, I just feel that listening to sports radio and being online and seeing the media and listening to people, like I feel they're so hard on these athletes, and that it really does take it out mentally. And I'm curious, like what the vibe is like with that in Boston. Like, how do they treat Jason Tatum? Like, how, you know what I mean? How are they, what do they think of the Red Sox?
Yeah, I mean, I would say this goes back to like how similar I feel Boston and Philly is. And I hope I'm not offending anybody by saying that, but
No.
I experience both cities, and really they are like, when they're winning, they're the best, and when they're losing, like blow the whole team up. We need an entire that's just how it is here. Like if you know Cam has one bad game, you know they made the worst decision. Like what do they do? So like I don't know if that's just a sports thing in general. You know, like I don't know if you'll get that anywhere you go. But I think that exists. But I also don't know if it would change in other cities because of social media. You know, like even though Tom Brady was Boston, like Tom Brady was everywhere, you know, like you look at people like Cam before Cam got here, you know, and Carson Wentz, like it was Pennsylvania, and Carson Wentz was the biggest selling jersey forever. And it wasn't just people in Pennsylvania buying it. Like he became a name. So like
percent off.
Yeah. Now they give it to you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny that you say that, like about the winning and the losing, because I found myself like, since we had our one Super Bowl, every year since, I feel like, I don't know if it's just because I was so used to the Eagles losing that I was not as like angry. And I think now that I've had a taste of the ultimate victory, and especially the way that things have gone the last 3 years with the Eagles, particularly last year. And I don't know if it was just because 2020 again was a shit show. You know, there was so much going on in the world. So I had like all this like pent up aggression, and I would like take it. I was like, am I taking out like my 2020 like energy like on the Eagles? Because I was like, I'm so pissed at them, angrier than I've ever been. And I think it's just because like having that like the highest high, and then like them winning 4 games this year, I'm like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
Wow, this Howie Roseman needs to go. And I'm like, if we won like multiple times, I don't know if my brain would like break from the highs and the lows of like winning and losing, and I'm not even on the team. Like
you're constantly chasing that high because you know what it feels like.
Right.
Yeah.
So for Boston, like they get a taste of it like every other year.
Yeah. And
the Boston thing is, I'm sorry, Bex, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just saying it, and that's why it's interesting being here now, because in the first time ever, it doesn't seem like they have a plan, you know, like that's never been the case for the Patriots. Like the Patriots were always like, you knew they were going to the playoffs, and because Tom Brady's going to carry them there, and they had a solid team around him. So yeah, it's interesting because nobody knows now, you know, and to me, I'm like, oh, this is normal. I lived in Philly for a bunch of years. We never really knew what was going to happen, you know?
Yeah.
So like, to me, I'm like, guys, it's fine. Like, relax. You're going to be fine. But it's a different place for them now because they're not used to this. So like, I guess that's the shitty part about always winning, is that you're so lost when it's gone.
Yeah.
It's an existential crisis. Like this, like the Boston Patriots fan, or the New England Patriots fans are like, just like, what is our identity now? Like they probably like, they're just like, we're so lost. And then you go from Tom Brady to Cam Newton.
Yeah. But see, I think that's what also makes it interesting, right? Is that like, we're Philly, we're in a horrible space because like, who was supposed to be our franchise quarterback, who was supposed to be at MVP, all of a sudden had the most crazy plummet in NFL history that no one could figure out. At least in Boston, Tom Brady left. Do you know what I mean? Like he was up here, and then Tom was like, I'm going to go. And it's hard because you see him winning, because I love the Boston question. Is Belichick without Brady, and is Brady without Belichick? And, you know, it's an amazing, this is the first time since 2007 the Patriots did not make the playoffs, and it's the first time since 2008 that Tampa Bay did make the playoffs, and the common denominator is Tom
Brady.
motherfucking Brady. You know what I mean?
I
Tom John Edward Brady.
I think he is, and that's why I can't fathom people, because even before I got here, I always thought Tom Brady was arguably the best quarterback to ever play
He is.
He is, yeah.
So for me, I'm like if you have like how do you? It's like it's like when these celebrities cheat on their wives, you're like, why would somebody cheat on Megan Fox, right? Like she's beautiful, but I guess like you just got so used to it being around that you're, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, it blew my mind because I came here and I was like, oh my God, Tom Brady, this is awesome. So yeah, it blows my mind because I think he's a fantastic quarterback.
But I think going back to like being hard on players, like from the people that I know that lived in the Carolinas, like people loved Cam Newton when he was on the Panthers. Like they would dress like him, and like he did a lot of stuff for the community. Like I don't think that like North Carolina is as insane as I don't think that they were as mean to Cam as we are here.
But do you think that they're as hard of sports fans as?
No.
And I think it has something to do with climate. I've always had this theory, but I don't think warm places are as committed to their sports teams as colder places, because like they're probably out and about doing things like, I don't know. I've always had this theory that it has something to do with the climate. Maybe we're just like more rugged and, you know, able to sustain more anguish. I don't know what it is, but I just have this thing about weather and sports fans.
Wait, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
I really like the concept of that. And I think that like, especially think about football season, right? So it's September to February, the coldest months of the year. And it's like, that's what you look forward to each week.
Like Packers fans are in the snow. Like you are a loyal fan.
Yeah.
If you are paying hundreds of dollars to go and watch this game in the freezing cold, like that's loyalty.
Right. And then you have like LA where like they have these teams, but when the Kings were really good, you know, when won the Stanley Cup with like Mike Richards and Jeff Carter, like after they left Philly, it was just like a drop in the bucket there. Like no on like their sports radio apparently is just very like, all right, everyone, like let's talk about the games. And then it's callers like, well, yeah, I was really glad they scored a goal. Where like here we're like, like why didn't he like take a razor to his face? Like
it's so true. Like even Miami, like you look at when LeBron went over there, like nobody looked at Miami and looked at the Heat. Like LeBron went there and then people started caring, but it's like, oh, maybe I'll make it to the game. Like I just don't think they have that same and I could be totally wrong, but that's just
well, yeah. I mean, like the Dolphins, I knew they sucked, but even when the Eagles sucked, the stadium was still full.
Yeah.
Like the Dolphins, what was it last year? The Dolphins were so bad that like they had to like move seats because like there was things that were sponsored and they had to basically like give tickets away because they needed people to be in the seats for like the camera angles and shit on TV.
That's why Jacksonville, like they have that pool.
I know. How fun is that?
The stadium that you can buy tickets and like go watch the game from the pool.
Yeah, I'm telling you, they don't care.
Right.
That like they put that pool in as an attraction to like
like right. Casino. They have to make it like a activity.
So are you like right now, what is the pulse like with the Celtics and the Bruins? Like, are people excited? Are they like meh?
I would say if it was any other year, it's weird because I think COVID and like everything in the world sort of like put this drape on sports. And it was nice because for so long it was such a great, like when sports came back, it was like thank God. So
right.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like the excitement level is there. But I don't feel like it would have been at the same level as any other year because it's not like people could go to the games. Like it's not, people are like, you're not getting dressed and you're going to the bars in the city. You know what I mean? So, and I'm sure it's the same for, Philly, and every city across the country. So, I mean, you're now resorting to just watching it at home, which is great. And by the way, shout out to Adam Silvers. I think he should run for president because I love him.
Oh,
yeah.
He's
amazing.
fantastic.
NBA was the gold standard through the pandemic.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable.
Everything with like COVID and with like social justice, like they just get gold stars.
Yeah, I love him. I just want to hug him. He's like a Tom Hanks to me. I'm just like,
yeah,
give him a hug.
Well, so your fiance Jimmy is from Philly, right? Well, he's from South Jersey, right? Where is he actually from?
From South Brunswick.
Okay. Oh, Jimmy's from South Brunswick too?
Yeah.
But you met in Philly.
Yeah, oddly. And what's crazy is we used to go to the same pool club. Well, my parents used to run the food stand at the pool club, and he used to go to the pool club. So we were like little kids playing wiffle ball on the front lawn of the pool club.
But you don't remember him from then? No,
it's funny. I kind of remember his brother because he had like a bowl cut. But I don't remember Jimmy. But we reconnected in Philly, and he's great. He moved to Boston with me.
But wait, do you know that they say that that's a thing? That like that there's like they say that like when you meet like your husband or your wife or your person, that there's actually been a time in life that you have crossed paths before.
Okay, I just got like chills. That's cool.
Yeah, like they say that like whatever that is, like there's always those crazy stories where like these people get married and then they find an old kindergarten photo and like right, but like you clearly played together when you were like kids, even though you didn't know each other.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So it might be a thing where like you were in like a Target at the same time 2 years, you know what I mean? Like, but like that's what they say.
Oh, that's cool.
So we don't say Natalie dates Hallmark Hank. And so we have to figure out where your path. Well, you kind of live in the same neighborhood, so I'm sure.
You know what's funny? We've actually talked about how we've been at Frankfurt Hall.
Exactly. Yeah.
Been at like Frankfurt Hall for New Year's Eve.
And there you go. Yeah. That's the crossing of paths.
And I was like, we were probably like drunk and made out, like.
Yeah. Or like before COVID, like saliva used to just fly everywhere. You know what I mean? You probably like, or like you brushed each other's arm in passing, like. Yeah. But Jimmy's family are Phillies fans. They're like Philly fans.
He's diehard, and I mean, moving to Philly, like I became a Phillies fan, but this is essentially what exists in my house all the time.
Wow. Okay. Sure. So what does he think of the difference between? What does he think of the difference between Boston and Philly?
Babe, you want to come and tell them? Come here really fast.
Wait, ask him what the score is.
Yeah, ask him what the score is. The Sixers Nets game.
It's 74-66. The Sixers are down. Okay. You want to know what you think the difference between Philly and Boston fans are?
Jimmy, thanks for joining the pod.
Thanks for joining. You're our first dude on the pod.
Oh, is that okay? Should I take him off?
No, we're all inclusive.
No, we need a Philadelphia sports fan's perspective.
Yeah, so somebody who's a major Philly sports fan, you now live in Boston. How do you feel the differences? Do you feel that Boston is as hard on their athletes and their players as Philly is?
I think Boston fans are entitled because they're so accustomed to winning.
Right.
That they just expect winning. While Eagles fans are very passionate, or Phillies fans are very passionate.
Yeah.
Because they want to win so bad. That's my take.
But like really quick, like let's go back to like, remember what happened with Nelson Aguilar last year where like the guy drug him, being like, we're out here catching babies better than Nelson. Like, is Boston as intense as that? Are they picking on Julian Edelman? Are they like picking on Jason Tatum for missing foul shots like they do Ben Simmons? Like, is it as intense of like it's fine. I get picking on the quarterback, picking on the star pitcher, but like we're talking about like we're picking on Jordan Mailata, who's from New Zealand, who never played football until 2 years ago. Like Philly's like that crazy. Is Boston that as intense?
Yeah, Boston would if they're winning, then they would care and they would pick on the stars. But when they're losing, the role players, they're like, whatever, like we're used to winning, so
it's fine.
It's irrelevant. Yeah, it's irrelevant.
Okay.
In Boston.
How's it like in enemy territory?
I stay to myself. So I will say, quick funny story. The first time we moved to Boston, we went to the food store, Stop and Shop, and it was right after the Eagles beat the Patriots to win the Super Bowl the following season. And I was walking around wearing my Eagles stuff because I've been wearing Eagles stuff for 15, 20 years. And I swear people were giving me dirty looks, and I'm like, what is going on? And it was midway through that I realized, like, oh shit, I'm in Boston territory wearing an Eagles hoodie. So
Right.
that was a pretty big moment for me.
I was gonna say that must have felt pretty good. I
Yeah,
would
just one, so it was nice.
Well, Sonic too. Sonic has, thanks, babe. Sonic has like an Eagles jacket that we put on when we take him out. And when I first moved here, I was like, I don't think I could wear this like when I take him out alone. Like, I don't know if it's good for me to do.
But wait, I am definitely that girl. Like, I swear to God, like if I'm out and about in the city and I see somebody in like a Cowboys hat or like like the other day there was somebody in a Minnesota Vikings jersey and I was in Starbucks and I was like, what's the deal with the Vikings gear? Like I straight up asked them because it's weird to me.
Yeah.
Like if it was Monday, it was after the Eagles lost and there was just like I was crossing, I'm on 13th Street trying to make the left to go onto Market. And so you have to wait for people to cross. And there was this like adorable old lady. She looked like she was about 80, gray hair in her walker crossing the street in an Eagles hat and an Eagles scarf. And I tried so hard to take her picture, but like I didn't want to hit her, so I couldn't. But I was like, this is Philly. Like this woman who could barely walk, like decked out in her Eagles gear, like the day after they lose. Like, I don't know if other cities are like that. I mean, obviously there are probably some old Boston ladies, but I feel like they're wearing like Red Sox stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I guess, what do you think the heritage team is there? Like what's like, I mean, the Eagles are the heritage team here, you know what I mean? But like,
yeah, that's a tough.
Like, what do you think is like the heart, like the old school, like old Boston?
I would say the Sox because like there's such history at Fenway.
Yeah.
There's such history to that team. That I think that you could get mad and be mad at the Patriots, and you could be mad at Tom Brady, and you could be mad at Belichick and Kraft doing like crazy things. So I think you could be mad at that, but the Sox will get away with murder because they are the heritage team in the station in the city. I mean, like we saw, Alex Cora literally cheated, won the World Series, and they just rehired him back. And that's it's crazy, you know? So like I think that in the city of Boston, like they love their sports. It's a huge sports city. And honestly, it's something that I think it's nice because I would have missed it so much because I miss being home anyways. So at least like I come to a place that feels kind of familiar.
Yeah.
That's nice. But like they live their sports here.
You know, one funny story. So right before the Fanatic picked me up, I was looking at other cities to do like sports talk radio in, and I was like, I feel like the only other places, I mean, I don't know how I would fare in Boston or New York, but like I like Boston as a city, and I feel like I connect with Boston, and I think it's probably because the fan base, you know, it's like, you know, I've been diehard Philly my whole life, but I was looking, I was like, I said, I think if there's anywhere I could go, it could be Boston. And I started to like put out some feelers in Boston. And then I swear maybe like a month after, like I was starting to like talk to some people up there, like some, you know, the Fanatic ended up picking me up, but I was like, I could do sports talk radio in Boston. Like, I feel like I could connect with that fan base. I feel like them and
you could, it's hard. Like it was hard transitioning. Before I moved, I was sort of like, whatever. Like you kind of just like leaving your family and your friends and your network. It didn't seem as heavy as it was until I got here. And I have to say, one thing that sort of like made it easier was that it doesn't feel unfamiliar, because they're such similar cities and like who their people are. I mean, obviously there's so many different kinds of like places in the world, but like they're just hardworking people who love their families, love their sports, love their friends. Like you get that gritty feeling here, and it's the same feeling that I got when I was in Philadelphia, and it doesn't feel so not home. So
Right.
like, so that's actually like what made it a little bit more comforting. And I know I've heard you, and I know what you're capable of. You would do extremely well in this city.
That would be something. I mean, Philadelphia might never speak to me again. No.
Yeah. Well, that was actually really, it's funny you say that, because I spent so much time in Philly, and going to Philly, I never had alliances, like I said, when it came to sports. Like I sort of like picked it up like as I watched it. And when I moved to Philly, like I started working in Philly sports. So I like began to fall in love with Philly sports. And then I met Jimmy, who's like a huge Philly sports fan, and that just amplified it. But coming here, you almost are so like when I first got here, I was like, bro, I can't tweet about the Eagles. Like I can't post with like my Eagles shirt on Sunday. And that's a real thing, because even though they're so similar, they don't like each other.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that is very difficult. Like people, when I first moved here, they're like, please don't become a Patriots fan or a Sox fan. Like that's really real.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you've gone to a Patriots, Celtics, Bruins, and Red Sox game, right?
Yeah. I've never gone to an actual Bruins game. I've been at like their practice facilities, and like we've done work with them. I never actually gone to a game, although I'd love to. But yeah, done Celtics, done the
So
Patriots.
what was the most electric out of the three?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Well, Fenway is just Fenway.
Right.
Which is cool.
Obsessed with Fenway. I've been there
Yeah.
twice. I went to see the Flyers play the Bruins in the Winter Classic in 2010.
That's fun.
I had a New Year's
That's cool.
at all those bars around Fenway, which
It's so fun.
it's so fun. And then I went to a Sox game when I was up there for a bachelorette party, and we did bleachers inside the park and everything. So like, what is it like? I haven't like, what is it like going to those games versus, I guess, going to like Philadelphia sporting events?
It's I have to say, experiencing sports here has been it's better. It's because, like you said, like Fenway isn't just Fenway. Like Fenway is attached to this street that's filled with bars, and they shut it down, and there's like food vendors, and there's the House of Blues, and like, so it's not just like you're going to a Sox game. And there's something about the stadium too, like it's very old. Like my first time actually coming was Derek Jeter's last game ever. He played at Fenway, and I remember coming. It was before I moved here, and I remember coming, and I was like, all the Sox fans just let Yankees, like we took over the entire stadium, and I remember just being like fascinated by that, and then coming back, and it's such of a small stadium that it doesn't feel overwhelming. Like it feels rustic. Like there's something to it. That experiencing it was really cool. The Celtics game, I just had really good seats, so I was like, yeah, it was the first time my coworker like knows somebody that got us floor seats. So I was on the floor, and I was like, well, I could never go to a game ever again.
Fancy.
I'm like, after you experience that, I'm like, I can't, like, this is it. Like, I can never go to another basketball game. And then with the Patriots, actually, Jimmy's really good childhood friend, Mohamed Sanu, ended up playing for the Patriots.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Wasn't he with the Falcons? Wasn't he?
He was with Cincy, then he was with the Falcons, and then he came and played half a year with the Patriots right before COVID hit. So experiencing it like kind of through him was really cool too.
Yeah.
And I also like did a bunch of work with the Patriots. They had like a couple like Madden events and stuff that I got to like see the stadium and work with them. So that was really cool. So like I've been really privileged to like partake in this city's sports, but in terms of consuming it, I will say there's nothing like Fenway.
Right.
Well,
which makes sense.
If there are fans in the stadiums, like come this summer, like we should go up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We have an extra room. This couch pulls out.
Fun.
You're more than welcome to come up to Boston. You got a home here.
Yeah, I love that city, and I do. I mean, I'm nothing against Citizens Bank Park, but Fenway is such a special place. Like there's
it's one of those it's an experience. It's not like you're going to a game, you're going to a venue. Like, no, you're going to an experience.
Yeah. Even the way they they check your tickets. Like, it's all very, it feels, it just has a different feeling. And like you mentioned, Natalie, bleachers is really cool. Like, they take this whole wall out and you could see into the park from this bar that you're outside of it. So like, there's just a lot of really cool elements to Fenway.
Yeah. Fenway is amazing. And then I just lost my train of thought. I wanted to say something. I'll forget. But no,
Yeah, Fenway's awesome.
This was amazing. Thank you for taking time to do this. What time do you wake up?
At 4:00 in the morning.
Oh my God, we kept you so long. No, this was
okay. I took a nap today because I knew we were doing this. So
Yay!
And we just started watching. Have you guys started watching Your Honor at all on Showtime?
No, what's that about?
Oh my God, it's with Bryan Cranston.
Yeah.
It's like, it's unbelievable. Did you watch Defending Jacob at all? It was another one of those like. It's just
wait,
like,
Defending Jacob was with Chris Evans, right?
Yeah.
Wait, did I make him my snack already?
I don't think
I do a Nicole snack break on every episode where I pick a favorite snack. And usually I don't do it when the guests are on, but Chris Evans,
I have new snack too, but we'll talk about that on our episode.
He's out and about in Boston though. Isn't he always around?
Yeah, he's from here. So like, he comes back here all the time, but he was in that show, and that show is similar to Your Honor. This show is, like, I should go to sleep now, but I'll probably go watch another episode after this. So.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm excited to check it out. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, tell everybody your socials.
It is Bex. It's spelled BEX on air. So BEX on air.